Thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Debbie Roscoe and I'm one of the National Disability Coordination Officers. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this session, UDL in Uplift, and our two presenters from the University of New England. We have Dr. Kashmira Dave and Kate Mitchell. So welcome. This session is being live captioned by Amy. Thank you, Amy. To activate the captions, click the CC button in the toolbar that is located either at the top or the bottom of your screen. We also have captions available via the browser, which will now be added to the chat box. This session, along with all the others, is being recorded. We ask you to please turn off your camera and microphones for this session, and to also use the chat function to pose questions today for our questions, and we'll look at monitoring that throughout the session, and then we will ask for those towards the end of the presentation as well. So chat function today, please. A lot of information, we'll put that in the chat box for you. We're going to start today with the session, start the session with the presentation by our two presenters, and then we're going to wrap up with the questions. So I'm going to hand over to you, Kashmira and Kate, for your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, everyone. And Kashmira and I are going to take it in turns today. We're both from the University of New England in slightly different departments. Kashmira, did you want to introduce yourself at all?
Yeah, I'm in academic development at University of New England, and I think that's enough because we already are in 3 minutes to the presentation. So let's get on to the presentation.
Yeah, and just to note, this session's being recorded. Please use the chat. We won't be using the Q&A function, but we will keep an eye on the chat and put links in there. And you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask questions using your voice later on. Thank you. Just an acknowledgement of our First Nations peoples. UNE, where we both work, recognises the Anaiwan people, and hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, as the traditional custodians of the land in which UNE stands. However, both Kashmira and I are lucky enough to work remotely and flexibly, so we recognise that other people here today will be joining on various country that may be owned by other traditional owners. So we just wanted to pay our respects to Indigenous peoples and First Nation elders, past and present. If you'd like to do more around supporting First Nations peoples and looking for some action, there's ways you could donate, such as Pay the Rent or the Indigenous Literacy Foundation, as Indigenous Literacy Day was yesterday. What we'll be covering, this is really about our current progress around UNE Uplift, which is a large project to get people to integrate universal design for learning into their practice, as well as make improvements to the learning management system. So we'll talk a bit about that, where we're up to currently, what some of the challenges have been, what some of the context has been around that, and then things we're hoping to do in the future or where we can go from here. And Kashmira will be able to talk a bit more about context, because she's probably been at UNE a little bit longer than me, but we're all relatively new. But Project Uplift, and you can see here for those who can or can't see, or maybe doing other things, there's an image of a little diagram of next generation ecosystem, which includes arrows pointing in, showing all of these different components as part of Uplift. So uplifted units, enhanced staff capability, LMS, improved processes, data analytics, and digital innovation. So really trying to think about UNE's Uplift project as a whole suite of different improvements to the learning management system, and as well as curriculum and staff capability. So it's not just one thing, it's really an integration of multiple things. And I will put a link in the chat to Project Uplift, or show some of the website shortly. Oh, thanks, Darren's done it for me. The current progress, and Kashmira, did you want to talk a little bit about the context at this point?
maybe at 16 elements slide. Yeah.
Yep. So the current progress has been so far that we've employed a partner to do evaluation of a number of units, and they went through a pilot phase, and then there's been evaluation of we work in trimesters, so trimester 3 units, which are about to start soon, went through evaluation, and then in my team, in the learning design team, they've worked with academic staff to do a lot of work for staff in making changes that align to the uplift elements, which we'll talk about shortly, as well as to align to some other existing UNE standards that we have in place, like our course design framework and TELAS, which is ASCOLITE's tertiary education accreditation scheme for online learning. And so those pieces have been happening in the background, and then we're currently working through trimester 1 units. There's currently a Moodle theme and upgrade underway to rebrand that as MyLearn, and the image on this page is our little UNE Uplifter MyLearn kind of rocket ship logo that's been branded out to promote Uplift. As well as then just really through the elements, trying to bring unit design and navigation consistency as much as possible, and really trying to move away from some of those practices around things like PDFs, getting things into more accessible formats, getting things just a bit cleaner and more consistent for students where we can. So we're really working through a minimum viable product at the moment to try and get things out. But it's kind of this constant iteration and figuring it out as we go, and constant kind of just shifting those things. So it's always sort of this ongoing process, I think.
Yep.
Were you talking to this one?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So what I'm going to do this, like Kate already mentioned 16 elements. So I will touch upon the historical perspective of how the 16 elements came into existence and how it emerged. So UNE, as one of the Australian regional university, was confronted with a number of demographic factors that challenge the delivery of effective student support and engagement. So in like early 2020s, I think a pilot project was designed in the Faculty of Education with the teacher education students, like around 5,100 students. And those out of those cohort, like 82% were 25 years and older, 20% were identified as having low SES, 43.7 being first in family in this, and 96% studying off campus. Student demographic characteristics such as like, whatever that commonly cited in factors in contributing, increasing, challenging, in compelling tertiary studies. So attrition rate between 2008, 10 and 18 was somewhere between 24 and 36%. While this demographic characteristics are largely objective in the characteristics and, addressed by and they may not be kind of like addressed by the university-based intervention, and the nature of quality and learning environment students experience is could improve this. So what the project was designed was, which was called Commencing Student Success Project, which is CSSP. That was aimed to change the way in which unit coordinators engage with and support the students in their first year of the study. So the project sought to address issues identified within the review, whatever that was, and raising unit coordinators' awareness of need for this, their responsibility and proactively build positive relationship with their students, and throughout and through the identification and implementation of pedagogical practices. So they tried to kind of like collate some practices which has a base in pedagogy, and identified 15 key principles, which at that time they called basic elements, from where this 16 element emerged. So that was kind of like a historical evidence-based background on how this 16 element came into existence. So next slide. So element 14 is UDL, and if you go onto that web link that was posted in around UDL for UNE, it has kind of like so the UDL is element 14, but it is kind of like spanning over many other elements, and I'll shortly talk about this. But the essential part of element 14, that is UDL, was content is offered in multiple formats, and transcripts were provided, and there is a lot of guideline if you go onto that page, and how people can make it more accessible for the larger cohort. But at the same time, this was also we were also aware of that having this element and whatever the guideline that we provide is aligned to TILAS, which is Technology Enhanced Learning Accreditation Standard. Now, it is just relevant to mention here that UNE is a institution-wide TILAS member. So that means that we endeavor to have all of our units throughout the university kind of trying to make the TILAS standards, so the quality that way. And UDL is aligned to like TILAS standards that is mentioned in the website, but these are like, so the 1.1 that you can see is online learning environment is inclusive, and 1.3 is that online environment meets appropriate accessibility standard, and 7.3 is learning resources reflect diversity. So it's not like coming from like all, let's say, all the videos are from the male Wired or things like that. And also learning resources, which is 8.2, which is learning resources are provided in the range of modality. We also have this aligned with our UNE online learning standards with 1.1 and 7, which the statements I will post it in the chat for you to just have a look. So Kate, could you just do that? So for the next slide. So what kind of like you are saying here in this detail of element 14, which is UDL, is it is one of the element, but overarching many other. So to give you an example here, that we have, let's say we have a quality media, which is one of the element. And the rationale here was that students have access to high quality media designed for online delivery. It is also then opportunity to have multiple representation of the media, including text, scripts, and audio only options. There is also another example of which is a visual identity, which includes consistency of presentation with distinct visual identity of the unit. But this is also an opportunity to apply kind of preset style, fonts, colors that can be made accessible and can be used throughout the program or throughout the university. So their students experience when they're transiting to year 1 to year 2 or whatever that is, they have the consistent experience. The next slide.
Thanks, Kashmira.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of questions which we'll be able to talk to shortly. The uplift elements, as Kashmira's noted, even though universal design for learning is element 14, UDL is worked into a lot of the elements. So for example, visual identity element 1 is to build consistency and remove distractions and cognitive load to increase navigation ease. The welcome video element 2 is to help create a safe space and build engagement and belonging. Open educational resources to ensure readings and resources are accessible and inclusive where possible. Quality media ensures high quality, including with audio quality and including captions and or transcripts. So, and it also includes some points around chunking video. So it's really woven in. Progress indicators, which is part number 9, you know, and also rubrics and feedback number 12, are really aimed at supporting executive functions and student self-regulation. And some of those things we're, as a team in the learning design team, building into units and trying to get consistency internally to say, oh, these are the things that should be turned on by default for these types of activities, or you know, in Moodle we call them activities, but you know, we have certain things that we're trying to make sure are done across the board, which hopefully starts to answer some of Justin's question. So we're deciding internally as a team what things, you know, what does that look like in practice? What things can we do for people? What things will we need to train people to do themselves? What can we do as a minimum standard? And use that kind of through this process, and also as part of integrating into our rollovers. So, but you can see that it's, you know, even though universal design for learning is one of those elements, it's really interwoven in the whole process. And it also means that there's a bit of double up, but it means that hopefully people feel like, oh, well, if I've put captions in, I've kind of met bits of 3 of those. So doing 16 isn't necessarily as big as it might look. So that is also a bit of the aim. In terms of the how, we have our Tiger team who are really working through some of those core elements. So having an HTML unit outline, turning on which elements should be progress tracking, and then other things we're kind of working in through consultation. And then trying to tie in where we can with other teams, like integrating reading list and having those sorts of conversation points, building in other things like topic learning outcomes and reflection points. The challenges really are around trying to do so much in little time, and trying to get internal kind of consistency around like what is the standard, what is the minimum, what can we then progress to over time, what's achievable in the time frame, and do we, you know, how do we make sure we have internal consistency when we have a large team doing different bits of that, and then obviously communication and support. How do we ensure that teaching staff don't understand what we're doing, that they feel like they've been brought in through that journey, and that we're not just changing things at them, and also just so that they understand why some of those changes are happening, so that they don't necessarily undo those things later, or that we can hopefully encourage them to build those into their practices. Otherwise it becomes us kind of constantly plugging holes, and I think that really probably talks a lot to Justin's question that was in the chat. So I think that was really all I wanted to note, was around that, yeah, there are some challenges there that are kind of when you're working at scale, and that this process is really ongoing. Kashmira, did you want to add some final points? Oh, you're on mute.
I was just saying that you know, looking at Justin's question, so we are so I posted the link there where you can see that we are in kind of like starting phase of my learn, that is a new system. So how it will go about, how we will go about when the sites are rolled out, or in subsequent offering, or there will be like a lecturer or teachers changing, how that will go. That would be kind of like a case by case at this stage, but we are trying to make it all like for instance, all the media is in the proper media repository, and it rolls over properly when it is, you know, in the next iteration. And so all this like perceived issues that we try to address through with some through automation, some through kind of you know, making sure that we have things that that would not, you know, sit somewhere which will be a problem. So we are trying to do that, but there will be so next iteration will be the one when we will see that the first lot of units that we have put new learning management in system in, how that goes in rolling over, because this uplift is two-phase. One is the learning management system is changing, and second is that we are trying to take this opportunity to uplift the quality as well. So I mean, there will be definitely some hiccups where we try to do things, but we are trying to kind of identify the problems. And yes, Justin, you have.
Excellent.
Yeah, look, thank you for that. Our institution's been on a similar journey, and that question has come up quite recently, and in an ongoing way when units are rolled over, someone else comes on board and then almost rolls back, the work that's been done. And we've talked about different ways to try and maybe separate some resources from, almost make them permanent resources that stay in, that stay in the unit, that continue on. But yeah, I was just interested to see how you
And also, like, we have so what we do is we have, like, let's say, like a set of units, and there is a outside consultancy looking at all these units and trying to look at all this a little different things that that is there or not there in terms of other all the 16 elements. And we are kind of having a checklist, ticking the boxes that, so the new sites roll over, there's everything that is not checked, or the issues that are identified is looked at for the first one. But I understand there will be still somewhere that will come up when it will be rolled over next iteration. So we will deal with them like case by case, and then add them into our to do, like, the checklist, so that next time it doesn't occur. So
yeah, I very much resonate with the comment about plugging holes. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And that was great, Justin, for putting your hand up and being on screen. So thank you for that. I'm just looking, we've had some comments in here, which is great. I just wanted to say I love the work that you're doing, and thanks for sharing it all with us today. And I certainly want to reiterate that. It's such a fascinating topic, and to try and put it all together so succinctly in 25 minutes, I think you've both done extremely well for doing that. And I think it's one of the areas that it's going to be continually evolving. So it's just a fascinating space to be in. So thank you very much for that. We're not going to have any time for any other questions, so I do apologise for that, but it was I thought it was really important to continue with the PowerPoint presentations, because there was some really valuable information in there for us. So thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us today and asking some great questions and just being part of the chat. It's just brilliant when people really engage like that. And I also like to thank Kashmira and Kate for coming along and just sharing the insight. That's what's happening at the University of New England, and it's just warm-hearting to know that so much is happening in this space, and that we're so willing to share it around. So thank you very much for doing that. That is great. And I know we could have spoken for a lot more than 25 minutes. So thank you again. Please check out our poster presentations. It's on the ADCET website, and I've got the link in the chat box to send you back to the lobby for your next session. So thank you both very, very much, and have a great day.